Hey guys, welcome back. So I've been going back and forth trying to decide whether or not to start this off on a light funny note, like being stupid, or on a serious note. I really don't know which one to do because whenever there's something serious to discuss, I naturally tend to veer toward the absolutely stupid and ridiculous, and that's how I deal with any kind of serious situation. But I don't know. I'm a little bit perplexed because this week, um, the mask mandate for vaccinated people has been lifted around the country, um, where you can go into places now and there's no requirement for a mask, and but you have to be vaccinated. You got to show your papers, and kind of in a good segue, showing your papers, Jew hatred is on the rise. Um, so, yeah, you know what? Let's go into the serious note. So, we discussed this last week. We were talking about Israel and their right to defend themselves against the Palestinians and all the terrorists. Um, and I kind of had hoped that by this week, the issue would have at least mostly blown over, and this would have just been like a little bit of an escalation, and we could have moved on. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and things seem to have gotten a lot worse. And I don't know. It's hard to say what's worse. Obviously, the killing, the murdering of Jews, the bombing of civilian areas in Israel, that's the worst it gets. That being said, the propaganda around the world, and including in the United States of America, the new anti-Jew hatred, I feel like that's on par because ultimately Jew hatred is what gets Jews killed. So I never thought I would see this again in my life. Well, no, that's not true. I did think I would see this again in my lifetime. I I predicted this when I was in high school. So in high school is generally when you start learning about all the wars and you start learning about what happened to everyone, in the last couple hundred years, and you're always going to go to World War II. And so I already, was familiar with World War II, being a Jew, and that, it's something that always gets touched upon at family events and family holidays. People talk about this one and that one and this great grandmother and this great aunt, and so you hear family stories that are passed down, and so your history to a degree. But when you're a kid, you're not really interested in history, and when you're in school, you're not really interested in history either. I know I wasn't. But I will tell you that when it came to the Holocaust, it was a topic that left a very strong impression on me. I've always sort of when it came to serious matters in school, I did tend to listen really intently, like in the 80s during the Nancy Reagan Just Say No era. Like, I took that seriously. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to say no. That's some bad shit. I watched videos. I remember in camp, I went to a Jewish day camp, and I remember Blockbuster Video. I know. Blockbuster Video used to have an educational section where you could take out videos for free that were educational, including Where Do I Come From?, which was a very traumatizing cartoon video on mom and dad having sex and where the baby comes from. And not only did my mother rent that and make me watch it, I guess so she wouldn't have to have the talk with me, she thought, I guess, in her adult world, because adults, as we get older, we start to understand our parents a little bit better. Now I kind of see it from her perspective. They probably thought this was so funny, so my mother brought it to her friend's house so they could watch it, except I came with her to the friend's house, and I was humiliated because I remember being forced to watch this horrible video. And let me tell you, cartoons back then were drawn with the bush, like full on bush. So like cartoon mom and dad were like doing it, and I had to watch that in front of my mother. And then she's like bringing it to her friend's house because she's like, you gotta see this is so funny. I'm like, please don't do this right now. And they're like, go away. I digress. This has nothing to do with anything, but there was the point I was trying to make was like the Just Say No era, where my summer camp, they rented this, like, it was a video with like a series of stories of kids who died while taking drugs, and it was all their stories, but the beginning is them like giving an intro, and they're like, hi, we're blah blah blah, actually we're dead. And I was like, whoa, blown away, they're dead, they're not with us anymore. And then they're going to tell you their story about how they died and how it was drug related. And I was fucking scared. Like, I did not want to touch drugs, and I didn't. I was a very angry teenager. I was angsty and dark and depressed all the time and moody. But I never touched drugs. Like, I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. Like, I wasn't even into that stuff. I was really a goody two shoes wrapped in an Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt. The point is that when the Holocaust was being discussed in high school, I was very focused. And I remember watching the videos, and I'm sure many of you have seen them before, the black and white photos of all the bodies of the Jews being taken. They were all skinny, emaciated, skin and bones, but they were all dead, and they were being wheeled into just a giant pit of dead Jew bodies. That really horrified me, especially because, I mean, according to my family lore, there was family that was killed in the Holocaust. I'm trying to figure out the timelines, and was it was it Hitler? Was it the Bolsheviks? I'm not sure now. I have some genealogy that I have to do. That being said, I remember walking with my high school boyfriend at the time. We were taking a walk in Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, and I just remember going on and on about the Holocaust. And he was always a pretty philosophical kid. He was a hippie. He was a really good kid. But I was like taking it extra. I was like, this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again. We always talk about history repeating itself. And I remember being able to catch on to the phenomena, I suppose, of how gradually the Jew hatred and the campaign against the Jews started. It started, people have this notion because, in school they have to get to a lesson. And they try to implore that it wasn't gradual, but when you're a kid, you can't see how the campaign started, how the propaganda machine started. And if you think you could do this, if you think you would do something like this, raise your hand. If and nobody raises their hand. And if you think you'd be one of the good guys, raise your hand. Everybody wants to believe they're the good guys, so they all raise their hand. And the truth of the matter is that probably like somewhere between 75 and 95% of the people raising their hand are wrong. Because it's very easy for good people to do horrible, unspeakable things. And when World War II started, this was not a one day neighbor turned on neighbor. This was a campaign for years. There were things going on in the newspaper, and I believe Germany was suffering some sort of, depression, and people were poverty stricken. People were, having a hard time finding jobs. Things were not great. And, there were Jews who were doing well. You had the doctors and you had lawyers in Germany that were Jewish, and these were successful people. And the campaign started, the reason why German citizens, even though Jews were German citizens, they were second class. The reason why you're poor, the reason why you don't have, is because of that Jew over there. See that guy? He took your money, which was the insinuation, that. Because that Jew was rich, that is why you're poor. And people started to put that together. And it became sort of a campaign throughout the country. Over time, good people started to believe that the Jew was the bad guy. That they're trying to undo Jewish nationalism, which is why, you always hear the word nationalism and you always associate it with conservatives. But that's not... nationalism doesn't always mean something bad. It's pride in one's nation, in one's country, in one's culture. But, there was a Jewish way of life, and they felt that the Jews were harming, were threatening to that way of life. And it became easier to get neighbor to turn against neighbor, because once you start to think, hey, we're the good guys, and that guy is the bad guy, and we don't like bad guys. We don't like people with horns. We don't like people with tails. It's easy to start to think, hey, you know what? Maybe we got to watch out for that Jew over there. Smile at him, but keep a close watch. Those Jews are sneaky. They're very sneaky, and they like to take your money. And then, of course, there's the you're either with us or you're against us. And it became very dangerous to be against, Nazis. It became very dangerous to be against the brown shirts, because that meant you weren't good. So if you're protecting or you're defending a Jew, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. And that with that came threats of being beaten in the streets. Sound familiar? Antifa, BLM. If you're not with us, we're going to beat the shit out of you. And that's what they did. They would beat people, set their houses on fire. And then eventually, it escalated to murder. And then there was the fear of, they're going to murder me. They're going to murder my children. I have to turn in the Jews. So we're not there yet, but we are, I would say we're about, I don't know, 10 years away maybe from that point if we don't do something. And it's not just the Jews. I will, side note, I would say conservative. So there's a popular term thrown around with World War II in relation to how the Jews were being looked at as the reason for everyone's problems. And that term is scapegoat. And I still remember it from school. And I think it is something that it's a word that is frequently used. And that is because Jews were scapegoated, meaning that they were, instead of looking into why there really was a problem, it was easier to deflect and to blame this group of people. Conservatives get a lot of that nowadays. We're scapegoated, or the rich people. And let's be honest, a lot of rich people are Democrats. The rich are the reason you're poor, right? The millionaires and the billionaires, they're the reason why you're not doing well. You're not doing well, but that CEO gets a raise. How dare he? So just to give you an example. So with Israel, Israel was not given to the Jews. Technically, if you want to get, in legalities, yes, it was in 1948, because the Jews had been murdered and hunted and persecuted in just about every country in the world, especially in Europe. They needed a safe place to go. It was British territory at the time, but the Jews had been there. Jews had been there for thousands and thousands of years. Jews predate Islam. The Jewish religion predates Islam by a large, like millennia, like at least more than a millennia, if I'm not mistaken. So Jews have been, in the Middle East since the beginning of time. We have, artifacts to prove this, buildings that are still standing, remnants of buildings that are still standing, as evidenced by the Bible. And you don't have to believe in the Bible. You don't have to be religious to know that the Bible was written thousands and thousands of years ago, with all mention of the Jews and all mention of Israel, and all mention of the Jews in relation to Israel. So this is not, a new concept. And, so Israel is very, very small. Let's just put it that way. Israel is a sliver in a vast, vast region of the Middle East. And the Middle East is generally comprised of, they're predominantly Muslim countries, the Middle East. It is what it is. And Israel is the size of New Jersey, maybe. You could drive from one end of Israel to the other in like 3 or 4 hours. It's a very small country. And this, this notion that the one place in the whole world where the Jews want to go, where the Jews can go, it's the only Jewish nation, that people tend to have a problem with that. And they claim that, it's not anti-Semitism, it's anti-Zionism, right? It's the anti-Jewish state. It's anti-Israel. You can be anti-Israel and not be anti-Semitic. How? How can you be anti-Israel and not anti-Semitic? It's the only place in the whole world that's just for the Jews. It's this big and in a vast region. I can pull up, I have I still haven't figured out, by the way, how to incorporate pictures, memes, and like video clips like into my video. I'm sure I could do this. I don't have the time to do it. So I'll just show you, I saw this and I thought it was pretty pertinent. I don't know if you can see. So the tiny country in yellow that you can hardly make out on the map is colonizing the Middle East. Right there. That tiny little piece of land is colonizing. It's not colonizing because it's not predominantly white and it's not American. It's got Western values, but again, it's been there since before Islam was invented. And I've been saying, and just like every Jew has been saying, what's going on between Israel and Palestine, and now with the leftists that I'm seeing that are getting involved in the fucking evil squad, Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, and the rest of them, you really can go straight to hell. I really hate you. You terrorist sympathizing pieces of garbage. This idea that you see that this country is minding its own business and getting flogged by rockets and bombs. And, in the process, some of those rockets misfire and kill some of Hamas's own, children, or they hide behind their children, or they set off bombs from buildings with children and families. And then when they die, they blame the Jews. They blame the Israelis. And, and I don't know. I guess I can't make sense of this. I know I'm just kind of stuttering over my words because I'm almost in disbelief at how hypocritical this is. So think about this for a minute. Black Lives Matter and critical race theory is founded on this notion that blacks they've been persecuted, they never stopped being persecuted, that racism never ended. And they dig really deep to find evidence of racism, and to the point where it's just like you're really just trying too hard. You're kind of you're overshooting. You really have to dig really deep to find it, and then it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's racism that still exists, of course, and that's never going to stop. You're never going to change someone's heart if they don't like you for your color. But anyone who half a brain knows that, racism is not this giant, large thing that's part of a system that created this country, and therefore we need to undo the system. But if you can get there with enough time on your hands, then certainly you can get to being anti-Zion is anti-Semitic, is anti-Jew, is Jew-hating. I mean, it always turns back on us. And, when you have Palestinians now going around physically attacking and now throwing Molotov cocktails at Jews in the street in New York City, and now I think in Los Angeles, going around in cars to restaurants and screaming, "Where are the Jews? Who here is Jewish?" And you're going to tell me this is about land. This isn't about land. This is always going to be about the Jews. And so while some of my leftist friends believe that this is just criticizing the government of Israel and this isn't anti-Semitic, that's where this is going, because the Palestinians and the Muslims, particularly like the Arab leaders, like I believe the Pakistani prime minister or president, he was talking about how the Jews in their deep pockets. It was on CNN. I saw a clip. They're telling you it's about the Jews. They're telling you. And so I find it very interesting that a lot of my leftist friends don't think this is about Jews. They think they're being noble. They think they're being the good guy, because to them, they see brown people and they think good guy, and they see Israel and they figure, well, I know a lot of Jews and they're white, so white must be bad. You've got it all backwards. You've got it completely backwards, and that is extremely dangerous. You are putting your Jew friends' lives at risk. Okay, we're at a place, we're at a point now in time in the United States. I'm not talking about anywhere else in this country, in the world. I'm talking about in this country. You're now at a place where Jews are scared. All collectively we are afraid. And the only ones who aren't afraid are the ones who are on the other side rooting for this. Because you had Jews that did unspeakable things in the Holocaust, in World War II as well. Jews all over my Facebook feed are scared for their children. I saw an Orthodox woman posting, try not to look too Jewish in the street. Be really careful. People are taking down their mezuzahs. I don't know if you know what a mezuzah is, but a mezuzah, it goes on your door post. It's got a piece of the Torah and the Bible in it, and you know, it keeps you, you know, it protects you. This is bad. We're scared now. Now we're afraid. And we're specifically afraid because the government is very left, and they hold all the power. They run the majority. The executive branch, the legislative branch, a lot of judges, leftists. The majority of the House are leftists, and they don't like Israel, and they've made that very clear. And the more they do this, the more that they propagandize and make Palestine look like the good guys, the more it's going to be acceptable to start injuring and assaulting people like me. You don't have to like me, but maybe you don't want to hurt me. I have family, and I have Jewish friends, and the United States of America is the greatest country in the world as far as I'm concerned. And I love Israel. You know, Israel is my Jewish homeland, but the United States of America is home. And really, there is no greater place than this country. And it saved the Jews. It saved many, many Jews. It saved my family. I love being an American. But for the first time in my life, I'm really scared of being a Jew in this country. I won't stop saying who I am, because if I've learned nothing else from this righty leftist battle over the last several years, it's that it's time to speak up and it's time to fight back. That's why I'm doing this YouTube channel. We have to fight. We have to put our money where our mouth is. We have to fight. We can't, you know, if you write that post and you're afraid to send it, send the post. Post it. Don't be afraid anymore. You can't let people make you hide and submit, because once, you know, you've got an entire group of people to submit, it's very easy to disarm and take over and gain power over them. So Jews, conservatives, and honestly liberals too, you need to start waking up to seeing what's seeing what's going on here. It's not safe anymore. These are the real Nazis, okay? Whether it's people from Palestine and people from like countries who hate Israel and want it wiped off the map with every Jew in it, or whether it's the leftist that thinks they're the do-gooder, that thinks they're the good guy, that they would never hurt anyone. You know, that's why they put the black square, right, on their profile pages. That's why they put the fist up, right? Well, now's your chance to actually defend a group of people who not only have been, you know, murdered and hunted systematically since the beginning of time, but it's starting again. And the same propaganda that was being spread back, you know, in the 30s and 40s, it's starting again. You have to see this. You need to open your eyes. You need to wake up. I'm trying to see if I have, you know, I think that's kind of as far as I can go with it right now, because I'm sitting in a room that has no air conditioning or fan and lots of windows, and I'm very warm and sweaty. So let's try to end this on a positive note. Let me know what you think, though. I'm really curious to know what your take is on Israel. I know this is a very long video, and I know that I can just kind of talk at like ad nauseum, and my God, shut up. But by the way, I went for a spray tan. On a positive note, I don't know if you can tell, but I am colored. I mean, that's a terrible thing. I mean, I have some color. I still show up as pale. I had to put some foundation on just to kind of like smooth out a little bit of my splotches. But I'm not as white now on camera, so I'm very happy with that. And I'm not orange either. And it got me wondering, you know, Trump, I know I voted for him and all, but my God, like with all the money that man had, he couldn't find a better tan? Like he couldn't get a better quality spray tan, really? Okay, I closed my eyes and let her spray. I didn't put the things over here because I didn't want the like Trump eye. And in my defense, if I did, I could probably just put eyeshadow over it, and Trump doesn't do that. But like seriously, dude, you have billions of dollars. Just like go to my girl. She's like a few minutes away. It was like $40. Trump, you can do it. It takes 15 minutes. Also, masks. Oh yeah, I mentioned it at the beginning. So we can technically go maskless, and some, my stupid governor agreed to this, and it's store preferred, it's store based. I don't like the idea of any store or restaurant that will ask you for your papers about a vaccination. I think that's a huge invasion of privacy. It should be an honor system. I went into Target. I didn't have my mask on. It was amazing, and I acted like normal. And most people were masked, and that's sad. Take off your mask. You're probably vaccinated. If you're vaccinated and you're wearing a mask, I don't know what to tell you. I know there are people who will disagree, but if we're trusting the science, take off your mask, especially if you're vaccinated. But I walked around Target and it felt like normal, and I loved it, and I will continue to do this as in every place that I can. And if you ask me for my papers, I'm probably not going to use your establishment. Although, except the spray tan lady did ask me for my papers, and so I put my mask on. But that's only for vanity, guys. I just needed to look good for you, right? I'm presentable now. I guess that's it. This video has gone way too long. Tell me what you think. I'm dying to know your thoughts on this. Jews, Israel, Palestine, leftists turning into actual Nazis. Like, this is how it starts. Gina Carano was right. This is how it starts. I've been saying this since I was a kid. You start with the propaganda and you work your way up to murder. People already get the shit beat out of them. It's called Antifa. They opposing views get whacked in the head by bicycle locks. Tell me what you think. If you have an opinion on my spray tan, let me know. Masks in stores. Tell me what you think. Have you gone without your mask yet? I'm dying to know. All right, guys. Shabbat shalom. Good Friday. Talk to you next week. Bye.